Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to another GameMaker tutorial. This tutorial is part 5 to the basic RPG series that I've been doing. I'm really excited for this video. I put a link to my website in this video if you're interested in checking out my GameMaker book or my GameMaker course that is on Udemy. But let's jump right in. In this video, we're going to talk about the draw event. And I'm going to show you guys how we can draw a shadow under our character. We're also going to talk about backgrounds a little bit and some basics for scripts and finite state machines. Now that sounds complicated, but they're not quite too complicated, and I'll get you guys started on that. So first thing we're going to need to do is open up, create a new sprite. We're going to call this sprite player shadow. We're going to load a sprite here. I'm going to load it. You guys, I'll give you guys the links to these. Can I just load that in? Will it know what that is? Yeah, it does. That's so cool. Okay, center. That's cool. It just automatically imported the strip in like that. Okay, and then we're going to create a new background, which is this little kind of scenery thing right here. Just click on that. We're going to call this BG grass. I'm going to load a background and library or desktop, RPG sprites, right here, background grass. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open up our room resource and we're going to go to backgrounds and draw background, or let's see, visible when room starts. You want to click that, make sure that's clicked, and then do the image that we're going to do is just background grass. You can see that adds the grass into the level there. It looks quite nice. And then we've got tile horizontally, tile vertically. Obviously, you want to do both of these if you want it to tile. That looks quite nice. If we run our game, our character should be able to move around on this grassy plain now. And it looks good, but the character doesn't really feel like he's part of the world because he doesn't have a shadow. And so it kind of feels like he's separate from the background. So let's snap him down to the background. We're going to use a draw event. And what we can use this draw event for is we can use the draw event to draw more than one sprite. So we're going to draw the player sprite, and then we're also going to draw another sprite inside of the draw event. But first, let's add the event and do draw. Because there's lots of different kinds of draw events, but we're just going to do the basic one. Drag over a code, and we're going to put in draw the shadow. Okay? And there's a function that you can use, and it's just draw sprite. And then this function, and one thing we need to talk about a little bit here is that functions take in arguments. If you remember from our step event back here, we did keyboard check, and then we have these parentheses, and then it says VK write, where we're telling it which key to check for. Okay, this is called an argument, and some functions have more than one argument. This only has the one that you pass in. It's just where you give the function information about what you're trying to do. So if we open up the draw event again, inside of the draw event here, we're going to call the draw sprite function. Down here at the bottom, it actually lists out the arguments, and they're separated with the comma. So we've got sprite, subimage, x, and y. And those are the 4 arguments that we need to pass in. The sprite is the sprite we want to draw. The subimage is what image in the animation we want to draw. The X is the X position in the room, and the Y is the Y position in the room. So we're going to do draw sprite, sprite player shadow, because that's the sprite we want to draw. Subimage, I'm just going to do image index, which means the current subimage of our character object. That way it'll animate with the character. The shadow will. X is going to just be X, which is the player's X position in the room. Y is going to be Y, the player's Y position in the room. End our parentheses and do a semicolon. Okay, sweet. We should have a shadow for our character now, right? But what happens is when we run the game, the character sprite's gone. We just have the shadow now. which is kind of awkward. So if we open that up, what happens is all objects automatically run the draw event and they draw the sprite. But if you create your own draw event, it overrides that. So now we have to draw our own sprite manually. But luckily, there's a really easy function to be able to do that. And it's just called draw_self. Draw self. And this will redraw our character sprite. So now we can draw both the shadow and the character sprite. And this order matters because if we draw the shadow first, or if we draw the shadow second, it's actually going to draw the shadow on top of our character sprite. Because it'll draw the, right? Yeah, it is. It's drawing it on top of the character. So order is important. We want to watch the order here because this way it draws the player and then draws the shadow on top of it. But if we draw the shadow first and then draw the player, it will draw the player on top of the shadow, which is what we want. So now hit save and run the game, and you can see that our character looks really good with this little shadow. It helps to bring him into this world so he doesn't feel like he's separate from the world. Now it feels like he's running around. He's got a nice little animation for the shadow. Awesome. Now let's talk about basic scripts inside of GameMaker. So currently we're getting the input right here, right, with these var keywords. We're going to change all of those into instance variables, and the reason we're going to do that is so that we can get those for multiple different blocks of code, I guess. So we're going to take the var keywords off of these. It's going to turn them into instance variables. Okay, we're going to copy this right here, this whole section, and paste that into our create event. There you go. You've got your variables right there. We're creating the variables there, and then inside of here we're getting the keyboard input. If you run your game right now, you'll see that it works exactly the same because we just converted those local variables into instance variables, and that's perfectly okay. We can do that. Now though, you're going to notice, and this will happen a lot when you're programming games, we have literally the exact same code right here that we do right here. It's the exact same code, but there's two places. Now the reason that's bad is because what if we wanted to change all of these to different keys? Well, we'd have to change them in two places, and that would be annoying. What if you had the same line of code in 10 places? You'd have to go through and change every single one. So what I'm going to teach you about right now is called a script. And a script is a specific bit of code that you might need to use in more than one place. So come up here at the top, and just to the right of this little green path arrow thing, there's one called create a script. And I'm going to click on that. And we're going to name this script SCR, which just stands for script, underscore get, get input. And then I'm going to tab down, and I'm going to do the three dash comment here on the script, because you can do that on scripts as well. Script get input. And you name this exactly the same that you named the script up here. This comment. Okay? And I'll show you what that does in just a second. This little three I can't think of the name of these right now, comment, it makes it so that, I'll show you in just a second. It does something, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to come into our player, and we're going to get this code right here, Control C, and we're going to paste it into this script right here, Control V. So script get input, that's going to get the input for our character. We can press the green check mark right there. Now what we can do is we can actually call that script, Okay, so get rid of this code right here that we copied in, and we're going to call the script. And to call a script, you type out its name, script get input, okay, and then you put these parentheses after it, 2 parentheses, just like that. That calls the script and makes it do whatever it's supposed to do. So you have to put those parentheses there in order for it to do it. Now this script right now, all it does is come in and it just runs this code. So having the script here is exactly like having the code here that we had before. The nice thing about it though is if we copy this script into the step event right here as well, now we're executing that code in 2 places, right? But there's only one place where we need to change it. If we need to change it, there's only one place, and it's right here. If we change this, it will automatically execute the updated script in both of these 2 places. So that's really very useful for your games. And if you have any sort of a bit of code that you see repeating in your game in multiple different areas, then it's possible that might be a good bit of code to turn into a script. And then it's pretty easy. You can do just exactly what we did. Create a script and then replace those sections of code with the script call, like this, by calling the script. So now what we're going to talk about real fast is finite state machines. Now in a game, you might see a character running around, and then you might see the character attacking, and then you might see the character doing a roll. And each of those different actions could be considered a state. Now what a lot of beginner programmers do is they come in here into their create event for their object, and they create some different variables. And they'll create one called running equals false, attacking equals false, rolling equals false. And so they create these instance variables like this, and then in their step event, they come in here and they say something like, if running is equal to true, then run this big section of code right here, like that. Else, if attacking is equal to true, run this big section like this. And then they do this. They have all these if statements in their step event. Tons of if statements. And it gets really kind of ugly, honestly. And super confusing. Just really confusing. But one thing you can do inside of GameMaker is you can create what's called a state. And we're just going to create a variable called state. So let's create a new variable here, state. We're going to set it equal to something, right? Well, you can actually set variables equal to scripts that you create. So let's create a new script. And we're going to call this one script or scr underscore move underscore state. So this one's scr underscore move state. I'm going to do the 3 dashes there. Oh, I forgot to show you what the 3 dashes did. Okay, so here's what the 3 dashes do. You'll notice that when I type scr underscore, it automatically shows, we get auto completion on those scripts. And that's what the 3 dashes do. They add this in. You can also get information down here at the bottom of the screen. It will show information on the script with those 3 dashes as well. So really useful, and I'll show you a little bit more of how we can show more information down there later as well. Okay, so you can create a state and you can set a script equal to that state. So let's open up our script here that we're creating, scr move state. Okay, what we're going to do inside of this state is we're just going to call exactly what's in our step event right here, this entire thing. So copy this from the bottom all the way up to where we get the input. I'm going to press X like that, or not X, but Control X. We're going to go into our move state and we're going to do Control V, right? So now our move state script contains all of the code for moving the character around in the room. We're just going to press the green check mark. And then inside of our step event, we're just going to call script move state. Okay? And that is just going to call the exact same code, right? It might as well just be in here. We've just separated it out into a script. And set your state just equal to 0 for now. State equals 0. It doesn't really matter. In fact, you can take state out. It's not in the game yet. Okay, so we run the game and it's going to work just like it did before. All we've done was move that code into a state. That's it. We just moved it into a state or into a script, which we're labeling a state. Okay. Now what you can do is you can create a state variable like we were doing before. State equals, and you can set a variable equal to a script. Okay, script move state. Now this is really important, so pay attention right now. This is really important. The move state, when we're setting the move state equal to a variable, we do not put the parentheses after it. You do not put the parentheses after it. Okay? You just type out the name and do a semicolon. If you put the parentheses after it, it will actually call the script and then try and assign the value of the script to the state or the return value. We'll talk more about that later. We want to assign the ID of the script to the state. So we do not put the parentheses after it. Don't do that. You only put parentheses after it if you're calling it. But we're not calling it. We're setting it to state. Okay? So now we have a state variable that can contain the ID of any script we want it to. And right now we want to set it to the move state. Well, in here we're still just calling the move state. But what if our state is in a roll state? We don't want to call the move state, we want to call the roll state. So what we can do is there's a function called script execute. Okay? And we're just going to pass it one argument, just one value in here, and we're going to pass it state. So this is going to execute, or basically run. It's going to run whichever script is assigned to state. Now, that's really kind of cool. And here's why. Let me show you something. Let's create a new, well, if you run your game first, you'll notice that it just runs like it did before. Runs exactly like it did before. We can move around in the room. Nothing too special, right? It just works. It works like it did before, which is great. But now I'm going to show you the power of using a finite state machine like this or a state system like this. We're going to create a new script and we're going to call this script frozen state. Okay? Script frozen state. Inside this state, we're going to alter what's called the blend image of the character, which is just the color. Image blend equals C underscore, what's a good one to do for this? I think C underscore aqua, maybe. Aqua sounds good. We'll do C underscore aqua. That's just a color. So when we're in the frozen state, this is the only code that it's going to run. Okay? Now let's come back into our object and let's add a new event. Let's add a key press event and we'll add a letter key press F. F for frozen. Okay, we're going to drag over a code. we're going to do set the frozen state. We're just going to do state equals script frozen state. Don't put the parentheses after it. Try and remember that. It will just give you, it will mess up your game if you put the parentheses after this like this. We're not calling it, we're setting it equal to the state. So now what happens is when we press the F key, our character is going to go into a frozen state. And instead of running this code right here for the move state, right, it's going to run this code right here for the frozen state. So we're going to see that our character in the step event, it runs whatever state we're in. Well, state is not going to be equal to move anymore. It's going to be equal to the frozen state. So then it's just going to run this state. I'm going to press the green arrow key there. We're moving around in the game. When we press the F key, boom, frozen state. And guess what? We can't move anymore because we're frozen, right? We shouldn't be able to move when we're frozen. That wouldn't make sense. So that's how a state system works. It allows you to separate out the code for each state that your character needs into their own scripts and helps you to organize your code better and keep things really simple. If we wanted, we could have some sort of a case in here, maybe a timer, an alarm of some sort, that sets the player back into the move state where it's like, oh, you were only frozen for a couple seconds. Now you can move again. But see how useful this could be if you want your game to have maybe a frozen state for your character. Maybe he gets hit by an ice attack. You can set him into a frozen state. All of a sudden the player can't move anymore, right? So we're going to delete this state right here. I just right clicked on it, went to delete. And I'm going to delete this press F key event right here because we don't need that in our game. But what we are going to do is in the next couple of videos, we're going to start working with attacking and rolling. And you're going to see how useful this state system is in regards to having our character roll or attack or things like that. So let's run our game one more time just to kind of look at it, see how nice it looks. There's a couple things that you guys have mentioned that we're going to fix in the series, so don't worry about those. One of them is that when you move sideways, technically you're moving at twice the speed of when you just move up, left, and right. So we'll actually fix that one too. But I want to take things one step at a time, so I'm showing you guys the most basic stuff first to try and get you kind of ease into it, because this can be, we're going to build something really cool here. And so it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a little bit tricky. There's going to be things you might not understand. So I'm easing into it, trying to explain it slowly. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to comment on the video. I do read all the comments. I don't answer them all, but you can do that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later.